Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Here with Kyle Murray. I tried to church it up a little bit. And Joseph Courtney. I'm just make them all rhyme. And Ashley Hicks. Ma'am, gentlemen, let's get into it. Sorry for throwing you off there right at the start. Joe, what did you call this one? Sleep milk?
Sleep milk. That's what I titled it in our spreadsheet because it just it intrigued you, didn't it?
It does intrigue me. We're going to be talking about sleep milk today and all the reasons you should be getting on the sleep milk train. So the study is called Alpha Lactalbumin, Improved Sleep and Recovery Post-Simulated Evening Competition in Female Athletes. The study was conducted this year, 2021. And so I think we have to start with what alpha lactalbumin is. And Kyle pointed us to a great, very in-depth study. Maybe we can also link to this one in the show notes that just kind of talks about it, because we like to introduce new things to the community, studies, topics, and whatnot. But I would say 70, 80, 90% of the time, I'm in no way an expert in what we're talking about. I'm just going through the science and doing my best to pull out what I can for athletes. When we get into energy systems, training, that type of stuff, I'm all about it. I could go really deep. So these I'm kind of learning on the fly. So I was like, why are we even interested in alpha lactalbumin? And so, like I said, Kyle gave us the study. I'm going to read the conclusion, just because it has a good, overall, what the hell is alpha lactalbumin? It's a milk protein that constitutes over 1/3 of the total protein in human milk. Through recent advances in food processing, pure alpha lactalbumin has become commercially available, generating new opportunities to research the use of alpha lactalbumin in nutritional and medical applications and in creating functional food products. Alpha lactalbumin is an attractive protein, both because of its physical characteristics, which include a clean flavor profile, high water solubility, and heat stability, which combined allow for diverse food applications, and because of its biological properties derived from its protein quality, which create the potential for diverse nutrition applications. And I'm just going to kind of stop right there. It talks about the use in infants and how it's similar to breast milk, and it can enhance mood and sleep and all these other things. So if you do want to read all of that, you could dive into this. If it's, we go over some of the science today and you're like, hey, I actually want to dive into this a little bit more. The study we are specifically covering today, it was 16 females. And all the study participants were competitive athletes. 10 played a team sport like football, not American football, field hockey, 4 middle distance runners, and 2 were competitive lifters. And I thought it was interesting. They pointed out, because they are looking at sleep, that some of the people were evening type, intermediate types, and morning types. And I think that is important to know. If you're going to be forcing people to sleep at a certain time, you should probably know what they were doing. So the purpose of the study was to determine the efficacy of alpha lactalbumin supplementation to improve sleep, as well as physical and cognitive performance recovery following a simulated evening competition in female athletes. And the researchers thought that's exactly what was going to happen. And so it was a crossover trial, meaning each participant completed each of the 3 study conditions. So there was an alpha lactalbumin control group, whey, and water. And so each person did each one of those. I think it was just for one day. Is that what we decided? Not 3 days? Yeah. It was a little bit confusing at first when you read it, but it's what they did was they did cognitive testing. They had to sleep in a lab, all these things, and then they had a really hard, simulated competition in the evening, and then they would sleep or give them the food and the supplementation, sleep, and then they would monitor all these things and then see how they did compared to their baseline test before the study began. And there was a 28-day washout period to control for menstruation and just overall. I think a washout period is pretty good in studies to have in general. So they were their own control, meaning that they would do supplement with alpha lactobumin, whey, and water with 28 days separation. And then they just looked at overall sleep. And to be honest, I mean, I'll just jump straight to the takeaway. It kind of helped sleep. And, but it wasn't, I can't like dive in enough to look at these sleep graphs because they use like the gold standard of sleep. So I can't look at something like this and maybe I'm jumping more to my takeaway and tell you if like, oh, well, this might be better than melatonin, I don't know. And so I think I would rather go with melatonin personally, but we could talk about it all. That's the gist of the study. It helps. That's why we're talking about it. What did all of you think about this specific study?
The construction of it was really good, really good. Having different types of female athletes, I like to see that versus just either inexperienced or evaluating that, because it wasn't even a totally performance. I mean, they check performance metrics, and I didn't really expect those to matter very much for the small parameters. So I think who they chose and how they chose how they constructed the study was good, but I also think that it could have been better done. More results could have been better if they did it over a longer period of time, because since we're doing recovery and performance over it might make a difference over longer periods of time versus just a couple of days, like a week later, seeing much results from that. But so that was one thing that I think would have been better long term. Let's see. I like that they were all comparing within themselves versus between the athletes, because I was confused about how they were going to do that with all the different types of sports, but they were only looking at their own data from each individual person. So it didn't, and so that's also good, because then you could see if all they correlated between the athletes and the different training protocols they're doing. They're really just concerned about their sleep and recovery, no matter what type of training that they do. But I think as far as takeaways go, I think this is only a great takeaway if you're one of the people that train in the evening. And that is because one of the reasons why we say to not train in the evening is because it's harder to down regulate. And then you're also having to get your recovery in and getting either a meal or a shake. And then if you're going to bed, then you're going to bed with stuff in your stomach and you're still trying to down regulate. So you might have to turn to certain sleep meds. So supplementing, basically making your protein shake aiding your sleep, could be very beneficial for people who are forced to train in the evening. So I think that's the main takeaway from this. But overall, cool construction of the study. And I actually tried to find some of this, and I think it seems fairly hard to find. And I say fairly hard to find because I searched Amazon and I couldn't get on Amazon, which means it's hard to find.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, just if it's not on Amazon, I don't know how you get it. You gotta get hooked up with some lab. I don't know. So other than that, I think if you can't, if that's not something that you want to use, then on top of your protein shaker, after that, you could turn to have some tart cherry juice or something like that. But Kyle.
So that's kind of where I was going to go with this was to me, this study just kind of made another point about supplement quality. And it kind of goes to what Joe was talking about as well. It was kind of, because I did the same thing. I was looking for some whey protein powder that had this dang it, I lost it. What's it called?
I was looking for individual
alpha lactobumin,
something to just like put like a teaspoon of it in.
Yeah. So I wasn't looking for specifically just that by itself, just alpha lactobumin isolate, but I was looking for, because this is used in a lot of whey protein powders. And so I was looking for a whey protein powder that had this stuff in it, and it was kind of hard to find. I did find a couple of them, but they're also more expensive than what most whey protein powders are gonna run you for a tub of it. But you can find them out there. And but to me, it just points to how important it is, and we talk about it all the time. If you're putting it in your body, it needs to be high quality. And so if you're wanting to, after listening to us break down the study, and you want to maybe try to find some of this stuff and supplement with it and have a higher quality supplement, that's a good thing. But it's going to be harder to find, and it might run you a little bit more expensive. And I agree with Joe, because this study was specifically focused on training in the evening, in the evening competition. And so I would say not just for people who train in the evening, but people, like, I know that we have athletes in our community who are playing like rec league sports and things like that, and they have games in the evening. And so if you're doing something like that and you're playing a rec league game, whatever sport it is that you're playing, this could apply to you as well, making sure that this stuff gets in you. But I would say make sure you're getting your protein shake, or make sure you're getting your supplement before you do that, because I just kind of thought that, and I don't want to take this away from Ashley, but I'm going to take it away from Ashley, that supplementing like 2 hours right before bed, because that's what they did in the study, that's pushing it a little bit. And just like we kind of suggest you not train close to bedtime if possible, we also suggest you not eat close to bedtime if possible. So I would just say get your protein shake before you train if you're having to train in the evening.
And then just an asterisk on evening training. Sometimes that, like when I was in the Air Force, that was just my schedule. If I wanted to, like, there was no other way for me to get it done. I was not able to train during the day. I did silly PT with the airmen in the morning, and then I did real training in the evening. And so that was my life for a long time. And so I think the big takeaway with evening training is try to avoid high intensity in the evening. Just keep it a little bit lower intensity, because the biggest problem with high intensity training in the evening is jacking up your cortisol significantly. And then you're not able to, that's going to combat with melatonin and your ability to, it can just actually mess with your sleep cycle. And so for some people, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know if it becomes more of a factor with age. I know that it didn't bother me much when I was younger, but it does more so now. And so that's why I wonder if it is more of a factor of age, or I don't know. But if you have to do it, do it. Just be mindful of your intensity with evening training.
Ashley.
So this study was interesting to me because alpha lactalbumin, as we're calling it, for me, I wouldn't have thought of it as a sleep aid. So it was kind of cool to read. There's a lot of like antibacterial and immunity properties it has when it's digested, especially in infants if we're looking at that. But so that's kind of where my mind would go if I was looking at this. But like Joe said, it was a good mix of ladies, which I really appreciated. And a lot of thought process went behind what was going on with each of the women, up to like, they had to know if they were on contraception or not, what type of contraception they were on. It seemed like a lot. And so I give a lot of studies a lot of crap because they don't include women. And I think cycles may be a reason why. But this is kind of eye-opening to know, like, they even had to do like a 28-day washout kind of thing just because of, how God made the female body kind of thing. So sleeping in a lab, whew, man, I don't know. When I read that, I was like, it always takes me a couple nights. Like if you go somewhere else or if you're traveling to kind of get good sleep. So that whole one night of sleeping in a lab thing, I was just like, I don't know if I would have even had good sleep if I was one of these ladies, but and then like Kyle said, I just wish they would have maybe spaced it out a little bit. But we just talked about melatonin and other ways on how to sleep. And this study didn't quite it worked, but it didn't quite make me want to be like, this is what I want to take in order to try to improve my sleep. I feel like there are other great ways to improve your sleep before trying this out. And I think that's one of my takeaways on this. Like, sure, it improved it, but it wasn't so significantly that I'm like, this must be done. I think I would try to do what we talked about, like the elements, and we always talk about downregulation and other sort of things like melatonin. They even talked about tart cherry juice, things that you can use in order to help improve your sleep. So that's kind of what I took away from this. Jerred.
I just think it's funny that like so a good source of alpha lactobumin is just to go buy baby formula. Like you could go find that in baby formula and you could start drinking that. And that sounds odd. It also would be expensive because formula is already expensive, but to drink an adult size of formula, I'm sure it even gets way more expensive.
New kinds of gains.
Yeah. But I've seen
baby
this.
gains.
I've
Just
seen
add
this
it to
in
your
the
shake.
fitness. I've seen this in the fitness industry before. I had this friend who was, he's a big bodybuilder, very successful. Like, one of the most ripped dudes I ever knew. So, anecdotally, I was like interested in what he's doing. Obviously, I hate the be like Mike strategy, but I was watching what he was doing, and he was eating a bunch of baby food, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And it was like the mushed up ones, like it almost looks like applesauce or whatever, And he's like, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this one correctly, but he's like, it's got arachidonic acid in it. And I was like, okay. He's like, and he told me about how like it helps your muscles, like they become more sensitive to growth and in response to strengthening them in general. And they ended up he did that for a while. It kind of caught on in the bodybuilding scene. I heard other people doing it. And then they came out with
people do it now too.
Yeah, and then they came out with an arachidonic supplement, and I actually took it, and that stuff is crazy. It like you take it, and it increases your muscle sensitivity to DOMs by like 30x. If that sounds like something you want to be a part of, like go for it. But like we're talking like you go like let's just say do a set of squats, and then if you're on this stuff, your legs are going to be so sore, like it's unbearable. And the main reason I stopped taking it, this was just so everyone knows, this is back when I was also taking like jacked 3D. This is like 15 years ago. This is not recent history stuff. I take next to no supplements these days.
Jacked 3D.
Yeah. So like when it was the illegal banned version. Yeah. Not the new like safe version. So anyway, I took that stuff. The main reason I stopped taking it is because what it actually does is it promotes inflammation. Like that's what it's doing. Arachidonic acid by itself is not bad for infants when they're in these growth stages. They're growing massive amounts almost on a daily basis. An infant is growing. You don't need to do that. And so when we pull out these like little like, oh, let's try this amino acid, like I always get a little bit leery of it because I'm like, food was created a certain way, probably for a reason. Like when you eat a steak, it's the steak has all the things that you need to balance things out. Same with like vegetables and fruits. And so when you pull out these like one little thing here and there, I worry about overall health. Right. I think alpha lactobumin might be fine. It has some promise and looks like recovery and improved sleep and even physical and cognitive performance, but I don't know if it's worth it. Just because we don't know, like with the arachidonic acid, like I guess I didn't fully explain, but I think we should everyone listening, everyone here knows if you want to like dial up inflammation in your body, that's where a lot of bad things happen. Like this is where disease takes place. This is where sickness takes place, is when you're becoming chronically inflamed. So to do anything like that on purpose seems odd to me these days. But people still do it in search of results. So this is something that shows some promise. and it does look to be safe as well, from everything I could read. But I just thrown that huge asterisk of like, be mindful when you're pulling out these one at a time. Like I started to for a little while, like leucine. We've talked about leucine before. You need leucine post workout for muscle hypertrophy. Yeah, we talked about it, but if you're taking just leucine, I feel like, okay, what happens if I do this for 10 years? Like, is this going to be bad? Because there's no way to get this amount of leucine ever without like just, if I were to eat like 2 pounds of steak right now, maybe I could get the amount of leucine you can supplement with one little scoop. And so it just seems unnatural to me. And I think it will lead the body down some poor paths. But maybe you should try it. Maybe you should try it. I don't have anything else. My killing comfort for this is just kind of what Ashley was saying. Let's focus on all the other things for recovery. EO3 elements. Let's focus on sleep. Those things are very important because I do a lot of stuff like sauna, ice bath, all these things. To be honest, those are just fun for me. That's just like, I don't have any other hobbies, guys. I'm not like, I do fitness. That's what I do. And so if I want to go sit in some cold water or get in a hot box, like that's fun for me. And so maybe that helps you understand why I do things like that. I don't have any other hobbies, but those things don't do anything for me in comparison to a good night of sleep and like some zone 2 cardio. Like those two things make me feel 10 times better than any recovery strategy I've ever tried or any supplement I've ever taken. Just those two things right there. So keep it simple and focus on doing those things daily over decades. Kyle.
Okay.
I'm gonna remove this calling of the names thing. It's gotten a little bit out of hand.
Okay. I would say, despite everything that Jerred just said about supplements, which we don't, we that is our stance on supplements. Like you need to most importantly, you need to just eat enough, and you need to eat well. You need to eat good, high quality food. But if you are somebody who does supplement and you're going to use supplements to help with your training, my kill comfort for this one is just kind of going back to what I was talking about of just bite the bullet and get the high quality stuff. Do the research. Yes, baby food. No,
I'm serious. I had this explained to me a long time ago. If a company in the United States messes up baby food, like formula, and kills an infant, that's the end of it. Like that's it. It's over. That stuff's like, as far as regulations and testing going, I don't know if there's anything more stringent. Like I'm not whatever with baby formula. I don't know which one's good or which one's bad. Emily breastfed a lot and for a very long period of time, so I don't have any recommendations for you. But I just think that might be your safest bet for stuff like this, because like I would prefer that over some Joe Schmo, no offense, Joe, who started a supplement company because he had a big Instagram following and then found out about alpha lactobumin from another Instagram post and then contacted his manufacturer in China and asked if he could throw it into the supplement. Like, I would rather go the baby food route, to be honest.
Well, there you go. High quality.
So I'm agreeing with you. I just think that might be the highest quality source you can get.
Yeah. That's my kill comfort. Ashley.
Well, my kill comfort was technically my takeaway. So thanks, Jerred Moon. But
you had a good one. So I really just reiterated it.
Yeah, just get after those down regulation practices and really focus on that sleep, and before you just dive in and try to take all the supplements. Joe.
Well, if there's much else of a way to kill comfort at
we took them all.
Yeah, like there's not really. Don't train in the evening if you can avoid it. Maybe take some of that acid stuff Jerred was talking about, because that sounds uncomfortable.
Acid stuff.
I don't remember the name, but
be some discomfort right there.
Joe's point: go take acid. There we go.
I was hoping that wasn't the
kill comfort. Take acid.
Oh,
gracious.
No. Yeah. I don't.
Sounds good. we'll move on to the tips. So the topic for today, we're at the start of a new cycle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we're at the start of a new cycle, and we like to do this periodically. Just give any tips, tricks, strategies, ideas, anything we can for, maybe the veteran garage gym athletes who've lost their way, or the brand new ones who need to hear these things. So, what do you have, Joe?
We're just gonna do one at a time around.
You want to do that around
Yeah,
the
I
room?
think it'd be better, just so
Yeah,
I don't take all the good ones.
that'll work.
So first one I'm going to say is actually the last one I thought about is don't get FOMO or overthink what program you're doing. Now for us, it's whatever track you're doing, but this could apply to anybody because once you get FOMO, you start to program hop, and after two or 3 weeks, you're just like, well, I've already know what this track or program has, so let's just jump on something else because I see everybody else posting their stuff about it and talking about it, so I should go and see what they're doing too. Whatever you pick, just stick with it. Stick it out for 12 weeks. You can jump on another track or program after your 12 weeks because the overall goals are still going to be the same on our programming track. So it's still going to be there. The tracks are still going to be there. It might be different arrangement of the programming because they're always fresh each cycle, every all the time, every week. But just don't hop around. Don't if there's something crazy going on, because sometimes it comes in ways, whether Jerred does something super painful or VD's doing something super painful, people get very shiny object syndrome and be like, I should go and be in pain with those people. Just stick with whatever program you're on and stick it out for the 12 weeks. Commit at first and pick whichever one's best for your goals, and don't overthink it. Ashley.
So track changes, I'll talk about like where you can find that. You can find that in the app.
It wasn't me.
You can do documents and links is in our app, and there's a ton of great resources there. So make sure to check that out. In the Team Builder app, you can also I think you can find this on, if you log on the website of Team Builder. And then also on our Facebook group, we've got a facts page that just kind of shows you like, hey, these are some of the most frequently asked questions. So we made sure that this was easily accessible. Once you sign on to our Facebook group, in track changes, there is a link for you to click on there. And also know that the computer doesn't just automatically update your track. It's either Joe or I that do that. So it takes a little bit of time sometimes, especially if you do it like the night before, because we do not work 24 hours. Well, we don't. And so
Joe has his own weekends as well. So
we don't know when Joe works, and he doesn't. Yep. He's like halfway across the world.
So if you are getting a little frustrated because you're like, man, I wanted to switch to Endure immediately, that's it. It might take a few hours or maybe even a day or two if you did it over the weekend. Kyle.
I'm gonna say, so Jerred had to step in for me on our concurrent training elite call a couple months ago. I was on vacation, so he jumped in and he threw this tip in the concurrent training elite call. So I'm going to steal it back from him and put it on the podcast. And I'm going to say safety valve. So, and my point in my notes was like move every day. But the point of that is like, there are going to be days as garage gym athletes, because we have lives, we have work, we have kids, all that kind of stuff. There are going to be days where the schedule gets in the way, life gets in the way, workout's just not going to happen. Can't throw an hour in there. But my point is move every day, put a safety valve in place where there's something that you're going to get done that's intentional, that is training, that is moving you towards your goals every single day. And if there comes a day where something happens and the workout's just not going to happen for you that day, you're going to do this. Now, whether it be, some burpees, or it be some air squats or push-ups, or, something like that, but set something for yourself that this is the bare minimum of my fitness training that I'm going to accomplish every day. And even if I don't make it to the program workout for the day, this is going to happen. And so that's one of my points. Jerred.
Along those lines, I was going to say, don't get too wrapped around, and we've actually looked at the science on this. Like the days in order, or, you know, any of this. Like if you have to mix things around, the scientific literature perfectly supports that it's okay. Like, to be honest, I don't put a lot of thought even into, well, that's not true.
I was like,
I
what?
was gonna say I don't put into thought like which day is which, but that's not in the programming I do, but I don't in my execution is what I mean there. Like I don't put a lot of thought into it when I am doing, let's say, like the hard to kill track. I I will, for the most part, will stick to whatever's programmed Monday through Friday. But we've talked about this before, and on that podcast where we talked about kind of the science that supports you being able to mix days around, I might have had a completely mentally taxing day, just a tough day, and I'm like, okay, I can only do this training session today. Of the ones I have left this week, that one sounds like this is the one I can get through, and so that's the one I'm going to do. And so, but that could be at the detriment of like doing legs back to back days. So I don't really put in that into account in my own personal execution of a track, because I'll just be like, well, this is the one I can do, and then tomorrow, if it's better, then I'll just get back on the program. So don't get too worried about that. You're ultimately going to see the same results, and just do what you can throughout the entire thing. Like if you come into our program on, let's just say your day one or week one, day two, you don't have to worry about that connecting to week 9, day 4, or day 2, or anything like that. Like we program in these 4-week waves intentionally because we know humans are not perfect. So we have a 3-week wave with a deload, 3-week wave with a deload, 3-week wave with a deload, and that's a cycle. And we do that so all you really need to focus on first and foremost is the block that's in front of you. So the 10-minute block, whatever the blocks that are programmed, focus on that. And then second, if you want to go a little bit big picture, just focus on being super consistent for a 3-week time period, and then get into the deload, and then the next. They do build on each other, but if you were to come into our program in the second wave of a cycle, you're going to be fine because of how we program things. It's not like I forgot the first wave. We don't program like that. There's a difference between undulating and linear periodization, and we lean heavily more towards undulating because we don't need people to miss all this linear progress, if they come into the program later. And so we've already thought about everything. Hopefully the webinar last week that was published as a podcast, you guys realize how much thought is going into the programming and things that we're looking at, but just get it done to whatever you can, and don't get so worried about the all or nothing mentality that I like to talk about.
My next one is going to be whenever you need a substitution. Substitutions aren't always going to be exact. You don't have this piece, if you can't do this like piece of equipment, or if you can't do this exact movement like plate jump, it's not always going to be okay. If you don't have X, then do Y. Our substitutions come with proper stimulus, and that means you kind of have either more freedom, because as long as you match the stimulus, like if there was a box jump and you don't have a jump, then we want you to do some kind of jump probably, or it could be we just want you to get your heart rate elevated. So understanding the difference between that and just reaching out to either us or being active on the Facebook group for proper substitutions, not just throwing something in there just to make it harder, or just putting something in or to put something in there. Everything has a purpose for why we have them in there, whether it's a unilateral movement or a jumping movement, powerful movement, something like that. So just understanding that we want to make sure we're getting the proper stimulus of each exercise, of each workout, and we're not just throwing something in there to throw something in there. So really it would be utilize the Facebook group, utilize the team feed on Team Builder, because I check that regularly, and just any avenue that you can, because we can help with any kind of substitute that you need, want, and whatnot.
Further drive that point home, that is what I'm going to talk about next. Just really be active in our Facebook community, post in the group, make sure you join the group first, and feel free to ask questions there. But we've got a lot of veterans who can help if, Joe, I, Kyle, Jerred, Marco, VD, any of us coaches, we're all on that group too. So we can always answer your questions as well. But typically we've got some great veterans who have been around for a while and have probably asked those same questions. And so they can also help you. Obviously, if it's more support, that's what our support email is for, support@garagegymathlete.com.
I'm going to go to blocks. So Jerred mentioned blocks, and this is our methodology of programming. We program in 10-minute blocks. And so each workout that we program, each training session, we try to keep it an hour or less. And so we're going to have 5 10-minute blocks that are programmed. And then we have a sixth 10-minute block. That's the ghost block, which is your transition times and things like that between movements and lifts.
Instagram,
exactly. So we get a lot of questions about the blocks. What is this block? What does this mean? And all that. And so it's a 10-minute block and sometimes we throw in fractional blocks, like fractional plates. Some of us like those. Sometimes it's a block and a half. Sometimes it's 2.5. Right. So that just
never done a quarter though.
Never done a quarter.
I've
You will never see a quarter block. That's not going to happen. But that just means it's 5 extra minutes added onto that block. So you get to that point, we put that in there of this is how many blocks this section of work is supposed to be. And so you set the timer, do the work. When the 10-minute block is up, move to the next block. And so we do that intentionally because we're garage gym athletes. We work out at home. We train in our spare time that we have to build into our schedule every day. And so we don't want to be spending an hour and a half to 2 hours every day trying to get our training done. And so we program it that way on purpose, stick to the blocks. If you're not finished with the work for that block, move to the next block anyway. That way you can get it done in that time period. Or if you have extra time built into the day, then finish it, and take extra time. But we program in blocks on purpose so that you're not spending a whole bunch of time in the gym.
All right. I'm torn between, I have 2. Maybe we'll all get one more in. So I would say
taking a risk here.
Yeah. Well, the other one I have to say is very important. So no, EO3 elements. We haven't really hit on that, but I can't really stress the importance of that enough. There's a lot of thought that went into it. A lot of studies that were pulled, and just do it. If going back to what Kyle said as his very first thing, like if you don't do anything today, just do the EO3 elements.
Yeah.
Like if you were unable to train today, but you focused on the EO3 elements, that's still in my book considered training because you're on a path with purpose, which is training to me, And so I think just do, and it's not about perfection. It's not about getting every single, element every single day. It's just getting as many as you can. It's just changing your mindset to making better decisions little by little. Like even in the nutrition side of it, we have 2 healthy meals. Like that's the baseline. And if you're eating 3 or 4 meals a day, we're only saying 2 of those need to be healthy. And by healthy, we typically mean protein and vegetables. Like that's what we mean. So just focus on it. Focus on it every day. Like that's probably the most important thing. Because if you're doing, let's just say, and of those elements, sleep is probably the most important. So if you're doing like all of our training and then you sleep 3.5 hours a night, I don't know what you're going to look like, feel like, or anything really. So yeah, that's the EO3 elements. And then we might go to Ashley.
So I was going to say all of our tracks.
Hit too many buttons. I'm still here. I don't know what happened to my
Joe
camera.
cut out for a second.
Buttons.
We thought we lost him.
No, my connection's fine. Sorry, I just, since I already derailed things. Mine's going to come to prepared. I just want to keep it in order. Sorry. So mine's going to be preparing for the workout now. When it comes to the warm-ups, block 0 is the warm-up. And we always say this in the brief, but or at least in the beginning. And that is, just taking 10 minutes and warming up, but you don't have to do our warm-up. You can do whatever warm-up you want. And as long as you just for 10 minutes for warm-up. And then also if you are struggling with time and you need to keep things on a specific time crunch, and especially those on shred. Make sure you're looking at the workout the night before so you can familiarize yourself with what you're doing the next day. Look at all the exercises, the flow of it, any new exercises you might not know. Watch those demo videos so that when you start your warm up and start your workout, you know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and where you're going. Because, sometimes not every day there's a lot of moving pieces, and it could take 2, 3, 4, 5 extra minutes of your workout that you're looking at the workout and changing things, versus if you look at it the night before, then you're already kind of fresh in your head and you're good to go, and it'll be a lot smoother to save time. All right, Ashley, now you can go.
I was just going to say, anything can be scaled within our tracks. We've talked about blocks. If you can only start out working 20 to 30 minutes, you can do the same thing, and just kind of take what some of the programming that we've done and say, today I can only allot this amount of time. So don't get too caught up in all of that. We've all talked about that. There is a 3-block track that you can use to help you with that we've already kind of utilized for you. But even when I'm out of town and I can't get to a gym, I've been able to do harder to kill track with, some dumbbells. It looks different, but it's still the same. Dumbbells, kettlebells, sandbag. You can even do it with just your body weight. So don't get too caught up in that. But we do offer 7 different tracks. So there's bound to be one of those that works for you.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off Joe here a little bit, but I'm going to say one of the most important things that every garage gym athlete needs in their gym is a whiteboard. And I'm going to cover the sarcastic comments we'll get later and say you also need a dry erase marker so that you can write on your whiteboard. But the reason I say I'm piggybacking off of Joe is because he said, review the workout the night before. I would say go to your whiteboard and write the workout on the whiteboard the night before you're going to do it. That way it's already there. And also, I think this is going to cut down on looking at your phone to find out what you need to do next, right? So instead of having the app pulled up with the workout on it and looking at your app, that means you're looking at your phone, which then means you get distracted and your ghost block gets extended, right? And so you start losing time because you're distracted by your phone. Turn your phone.
And science says it kills your results.
Absolutely. And we've covered that. So write it down on your whiteboard the night before so that when you go into your gym, it's ready, or your journal, and so that it's ready to go and you have it in front of you. It's all written down. And I would also say, don't log your results until the workout is over. So write your results for each block. If you like whatever weight you did, or whatever meters you were supposed to hit, or whatever time you were supposed to hit, write it down on your whiteboard during the workout and then log all of it in the app after the workout is over. That way you're not on your phone during the workout. So I guess really my point is don't be on your phone during the workout. But the way that you avoid that is by having a whiteboard in your gym so that you can write all that stuff down.
It's weird. My last tip was just make sure that you have the app open during the entire work.
That was not your next tip.
No, mine was super tactical. It kind of goes in with my first one. I'm just like consistency, doing what you can. But I think it was like 2 years ago, I threw down the challenge to athletes, and something that I was doing as well was my goal for the year was just 300 training sessions. And that was the only thing I was tracking fitness wise. I wasn't tracking. I didn't really care about back squat or like anything else. It's just like get 300 sessions over the course of a year. And that's very doable for most people. But what I think is really cool, and what I didn't do, if you see Dominic Decker post a shot of his occasionally, he just bought like a big like annual monthly calendar, right? And he just kind of marks his training that he did. And I think it's cool to have that visual representation. How I do it is just I look at the Garmin calendar because the Garmin has a calendar, and if you did a workout, it'll have like a green bar on it. So that's how I track it. But I think having like a physical thing, like it's in his gym, which is really cool. So I think doing that, having like a visual representation of what your month looked like is really solid, because that was the original reason I started to do it a few years ago, because I would miss training sessions like here and there. It'd be like I missed this one, I missed that one. But when you're only training, when your expectations is about 5 days a week and you're missing one here, one there, and you're like, I only trained, 18 times this month. And you're like, that's not how many times I want to train in a month. And so, these things, skipping here and there really, really add up. And I think having a visual representation maybe in your gym next to your whiteboard, Kyle, right?
There you go.
Or maybe buy a really big whiteboard and just write out all the months of the year there. But I think having that visual representation of your consistency would be huge.
Absolutely.
And is helpful. Joe's looking at the Garmin app for a calendar.
Yeah, I looked at the bars and it has all the bars. I have like mine are all full of bars, but it has like sleep, heart rate, weight, and stuff like that. I don't really care.
You can change what you view.
I just
so you know,
found that as well.
Yeah, mine only shows training sessions. So
yeah, we got a lot of bars.
Well, and then if you also, just a technicality, if you do like more than one event in a day, it's going to show multiple bars on one day. Or like,
yeah, which I do fairly often because I'll do strength, and then when I do my zone 2, I close out strength and then I cycle or run.
And that doesn't count as 2; it counts as 1.
Damn.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I've only been training like twice a week.
All right, let's get into the workout. Kyle, what do we have?
This week we have heavy load short distance. Anyone who's listened to the podcast before knows I'm a burden carry type guy. It's one of my favorite things. So this one is one of my favorites. Really, really simple. For max meters, you will carry 2 kettlebells in the front right position for as long as possible. When you reach max distance, set them down and rest for 2 minutes. And you're going to do this for 20 total rounds. And your score is your total meters walked. Substitutions, you may use 2 dumbbells instead of kettlebells. If you don't have 2 kettlebells of the same weight, you may use 2 dumbbells in the front right position. Or if you don't have either one of those, you may also use a barbell in the front right position. And
it makes it just like a nasty iron mile.
Word.
Yeah, it just it's
front rack iron mile.
That's pretty crazy. Anyway, so my tips would be, as I said, I really love burden carries, especially putting them in the front rack. I think because the front rack trains you to stand up straight and walk straight and keep your chest up. It will either train you to do things properly or it will break you in half. So those are the 2 things. Those are the 2 options. If you don't carry those things in the front right position properly, then you will be hurt.
Sorry.
Very, very sorry. So that's one of my tips is make sure to keep your back straight and your chest up while you've got those, whatever implement you're using, while you've got it in the front rack. Make sure to keep it in, keep everything locked in and in the proper form, because you will injure yourself if you don't. And I would just say, just like Old McDonald, which we covered last time we covered a workout, angry music. Listen to something angry and heavy and walk a long way. Ashley.
You stole every single point that I had on there.
You are welcome.
He talked about keeping your chest up. Make sure your core is engaged while you're doing that too. That's super important. So that way, if your core is not engaged, obviously you're going to injure yourself. And then obviously choose the weight accordingly. It is for max meters. And I know that it's heavy load short distance. Who knows? Maybe your short distance is a 400 meter walk. But again, no, you're doing this for 20 rounds. So take that into account. And then, rock music would be my jam for this one. So something that could definitely pump you up through this. A little Fuel by Metallica would be a good one there. All right, Joel.
So for those of you who've been on the strength track, you should be well prepared for this, because I have created my own heavy load short distance.
This is just a normal Tuesday for us.
Yeah, LITE. Because I mean, strength tracks, I always put in weighted carries because you gotta be able to hold the weight. But for this, so a tip on if you haven't done double front rack carry of kettlebells or dumbbells, there are two positions. Both of them have different kinds of pain. One of which is you're going to hold it. You're going to hold it tight and keep it compact to help hold the weight for a while. You're not going to be able to breathe very well. And then the other one is to hold it out so that your chest can actually breathe. Your shoulders are going to be smoked. So my tip, advice, rationalization for this workout is, because you're doing max distance and then resting at a max distance, trade off and on which one you will do. So hold it tight to your chest, try and control your breathing, but it's going to be hard to breathe. Set it down, do your 2-minute rest, pick it up, carry it outward so you can breathe a little bit better, put more strain on your shoulders, and then alternate that way so that at least each time you're kind of getting a different kinds of pain each time, versus kind of like trying to shift during, because that's just not gonna do much, because it's not gonna last. So that would be my tip, thoughts, advice, and then grin and bear it. Jerred.
Well, that should be a Meet Yourself Saturday.
Grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Here we go.
Here's the seed.
Yeah, but we don't know what it's gonna be, so
Yeah,
it's fine.
that could be anything.
It's not going to be something you're grinning about, that's for sure.
There might be a bear involved. There bear
Revenant
hugs,
style.
bear crawls.
Meet Yourself Saturday.
It's great. Sorry, the brain's just going.
Yeah, we need to bring you back to where you need to be for a minute.
I'm going to reiterate why Meet Yourself Saturday exists, and it is to meet yourself. This is not really part of the training, and to be honest, it's part of the mental training, but not like the programming. You're supposed to come into these workouts finding the person who wants to quit, finding the person who wants to complain, finding the person who wants to make a deal, and then you have to change the conversation with that version of yourself. Like, that is the whole point behind Meet Yourself Saturday. So with this one, Ash kind of mentioned it, like, what is your short distance? Is it 400 meters? Just go in not knowing every time, all 20 times. Go in not knowing. Don't be like, okay, I got 400 that time, so next time 350 would be okay because I'm a slacker and don't want to try as hard. No, don't start those justifications. Be like, I got 400. Let's see if I can beat that. Maybe I'll go 401. And I'm not saying beat it every time. Maybe round 1, you go 400. Round 2, you make it 420. And then round 3, you're like, holy crap, I can only go 200. But go in not knowing every single time. Don't base or gauge your effort from the previous to the next. Just go in every time not knowing. Then you'll get to those mental conversations. It'll happen around round 13, 14, 15, 16. You'll get to the place where I want you to be. And that's where you're hopefully, first off, mad at me. That's great. Mission, success. If you, anytime at Meet Yourself Saturday, you think I am stupid or you are mad at me, I did my job. And secondary, now you can transition to changing the conversation in your head about why you feel sorry for yourself, why you're making deals, all these things, and start working on that. So go in not knowing every single time. That's going to be more of a challenge. But you guys did a great job on the tips, because the form is super important on this one. But that's it. Does anybody have anything else before we get out of here? No.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Joe. What do you got? We're at the start of a new cycle. You want anybody at the end of the podcast to know anything?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I already covered all that in the tips. Watch the athlete brief. I don't think anybody else said that. I was leaving it up to somebody else.
We should have all said that.
Had it on my list.
It was on. I think it was on everybody's list. We all just like back to it. Yeah.
Next time we do newbie tips, we should all say, watch the athlete brief, but like for our own reason. And that way everyone says, watch the athlete brief.
Mine is so I don't have to tell you in a support email.
Okay, let's just do it right now. Mine is because I took time to do them. And like freaking watch them. They're there to explain the workout. And we can see how many people watch them. Like, okay, well, 1,000 athletes are on this track and 100 views. Damn it. Okay. Well, you have to, Kyle, Ashley, does anybody have a different reason for watching the athlete briefs?
I don't know of another reason to watch it than so you don't have to ask questions and so you know what you're doing in the workout. Yeah, I would add to the athlete briefs, kind of the sub items for the athlete briefs would be the movement demonstration videos. So if you see in the athlete brief, like something that you don't know how to do, hey,
Long
we have a
live
video for
the
that as
seated
well.
forward fold.
Yeah. So it's like if you see something there, or we're explaining that, hey, you have to do this for the workout. You're like, I don't know what that is. Well, guess what? There's a video for it. So go click on that thing and watch the video for that as well, so you know what you're doing.
Actually,
And
Kyle,
do
I
it
have a
the night
question for
before.
you. Yeah, I have a question for you, because since your wife is on the programming, and I don't know if I wish she'd be on a different track, but does she ever come to you with workout questions, and then do you ever tell her to watch the brief?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, Kyle, I have a question for you. That's how I
Oh.
started this whole thing.
Oh,
I can
okay.
answer
I
this
didn't
one.
hear that part. I didn't hear
Well,
that part.
I don't have a wife, so there's that.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, that's what threw me off, because Ashley was going next, and then he said Ashley's wife. I was like, wait a second.
Well, you were talking.
Okay, my answer to the question is yes. That's always my first question is, did you watch the athlete brief? And she's like, no.
Bold move,
And I'm
Cotton.
like, the athlete brief is there. Go see what it says. And if she has watched it, then I will help describe it a little bit better.
So if any athletes in our community find themselves in this situation, the correct strategy is, if you know who programmed it, say they're on Hard to Cook. Jerred probably mentioned it in the athlete brief, but let me see. And then you answer the question. So you slipped it in there to where, like, watch the athlete brief. Okay.
Like a
next time,
backhanded compliment.
next time you watch the athlete brief, this time I'm explaining. It happens again. Just say the same exact thing. Joe probably mentioned it in the athlete brief, but let me take a look. Yeah. So
I'm secure enough in our relationship to just ask her straight up.
There's that.
Silence. Okay, Ashley, did you have an athlete brief reason?
There's only so many notes that we could probably potentially put in there. And there's probably some intensities that we want you to hit, or maybe even like if we're talking about a dynamic movement or the way we want you to lift this weight. And Jerred does I think we all do a great job, but Jerred does a great job, especially of like, hey, this is how I want this to be performed at. And so that's another reason to listen to the athlete brief, because it may not have made it to the notes, because again, we can only put so many notes in there. So
yeah, how long does it, like, if I were to speak for 3 minutes continuously, I don't know how many words that would be, but is that like 400 words? Like, do you want to read that? And you want us to put that in the notes? Anyway, we have gone way off on the tangent here at the end. So I'm just going to get out of here. If you're here and you've been here, you're doing the training, thank you so much for being a Garage Gym Athlete. If you're not, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial, and we would love to have you. But ultimately, the reminder, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. Gym Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Thanks for listening.